We all know back in 2020, 2021, the interest rates to our mortgages were as low as 2.5%, which drove a lot of people to either refinance to the lower rate, or many first-time home buyers were able to use this opportunity to secure and lock in on a very low fixed rate mortgages. In fact, so much so, according to the Federal Housing Financing Agency, approximately 61% of all mortgages today are at 4% or lower interest rates. But what if I were to tell you that your 2.5%, 3%, or even 4% interest rate mortgage might actually end up being like a 12% mortgage at the end of 30 years? And no, this is not some clickbait or I'm trying to mislead you guys on something. I will actually, with spreadsheet and math, show you how that could be. So with that said, what's going on, guys? My name is Sam Kwok, one half of the Kwok Brothers. I'm a real estate investor, entrepreneur, and a finance expert. If you're new to our channel, we love to talk about strategies to increase our wealth as well as better manage our finances so that we can ultimately enjoy financial peace of mind. Now, seeing that almost 61% of all mortgages are below that 4%, you might be just part of that statistic where your mortgage rate is less than 4%. But let me show you why it might be closer to a 12% interest rate when this is all said and done. And it has to do with two things. First being how the mortgage is paid down using something called amortization. The second aspect to this is the social economic changes, which I'll tell you a little bit more in just one sec. Now, what you're seeing on the screen is something called an amortization chart. Nearly all loans are paid down using amortization, especially your 30-year mortgage. Now, for those who don't know really how this chart works, let me break this down so that you can easily understand. The line that goes from left to right, the horizontal axis, represents the amount of time you're paying down your mortgage. So obviously over here, you have your 0-year mark, and all the way to the right is your 30-year mark, which is when we're expecting to pay down and off this mortgage. Now, the line that goes up and down actually represents the amount of your monthly payment. So let's just say your monthly payment every month is $1,000 every month. Just nice and even round number. I know some of you have higher numbers, but I'm just giving you an example. Now, what's interesting about how a mortgage is paid down using amortization is that the vast majority of the interest you pay throughout the 30-year of your loan is actually paid up front in the first 10 to 15 years. And that's usually because your mortgage principal balance is at its highest. Some people may use the term front-loaded interest. Now, you'll notice that the green shaded or the lime color area represents the amount of interest you pay in proportion to that of your monthly payment every month. So when you look at your first ever monthly payment on this sample mortgage, you'll notice that almost 30 or 70% of your monthly payment is going towards interest. So really that's happening is that in the first 10 years of your mortgage payments, vast majority of it is going towards interest. It's kind of like the bank saying, hey, we want to get paid first, before you get to actually pay down some more principal. So of course, as you progress, you'll pay less and less interest because your principal balance is dropping over time. In fact, if you're within the first 2 to 3 years of paying down your mortgage, all you need to do is check your mortgage statement and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because vast majority of your payments is broken down to where a lot of it is going towards interest and a fewer or smaller amount is actually going towards principal pay down. So most of it goes towards interest and a smaller amount of your payment is actually going towards reducing your principal, at least within the first 10 to 15 years of your mortgage. Now, this is where it gets interesting. I'm surprised that not many finance channels around YouTube or TikTok is talking about this, and it has to do with the US Census Bureau data. Now, the US Census Bureau data based on 2010, you can Google this and I'll actually put the source down below. The US Census Bureau has found that on average, the US adult moves 11.7 times in their lifetime. Now, if we extrapolate this data and say that you live to be about 80 years old, that means that you would have moved every 6 to 7 years in your lifetime. So you live to be about 80 years, you move 11.7 times in your lifetime. And of course, we're assuming everything being equal, you're gonna move every 6 to 7 years. So let's draw a line in the 6 to 7 year mark, and I'm not gonna be that precise, but let's do our best, okay? So every 6 to 7 years, the US Census Bureau data shows that you're likely to move, and the reasons may vary, such as maybe you downsize, maybe your family grows, so you have to move to a larger home, maybe a job relocation, you have a new job across town or a different city, maybe you don't like the state you live in, so you move to another state. I mean, there's myriad of reasons that I can give you as to why someone could move. I mean, think about even your situation, think about the last time you moved. There we go, right? So every 6 to 7 years, you're likely to move, which means that for an average homeowner, they'll pay down this mortgage for 7 years, which we already talked about. The vast majority of that time, they've been paying mostly towards interest. So let's put the scenario together. The 7-year mark comes. Let's say you found a reason to move and you have to move because of a new job or whatever the case might be. And you decide you sell the house and you go and get a new house, get a brand new mortgage. The question for you, and I think you're smart to figure this out, is do you get to continue making payments where more and more of your payments are actually counting towards principal paydown? Or do you have to start all over back to square one, where vast majority of your payments are going towards interest? And I think you guys kind of know the answer, right? It's you have to go back to square one, where vast majority of your payments are going towards interest. Now, had you stuck around and kept that home and kept paying it down, maybe you are going to be closer to this halfway point where more and more of your payments are actually going towards principal paydown, which of course we want that. But of course, there's life circumstances and economic behavioral things that we can't control sometimes that would obviously leave us no choice but to move. And we've all been there before. So the problem with this is that if this cycle were to continue every 67 years, okay, you make it to the 67-year mark, sell your house, buy a brand new home, get a brand new mortgage, start all over in the 30-year mark. And if we were to continue this cycle 3 more times, what is the net cost of our interest over the life of our home ownership? Not necessarily the life of this mortgage or one mortgage. What would it look like if it took on the perspective of what is it actually going to cost us over the life of our lifetime, not the mortgage? So here's what I did. I went in and created an Excel spreadsheet to show the math behind how much would this cost if we were to be in the cycle where we buy a house and sell it every 6 to 7 years. I'm going to show you the true cost of this. Okay, you may have a 3%, 4%, or even 2.5% mortgage. I want to show you why it might actually end up being 12% at the end of that 30-year or at the end of your 30-year life. So here we go. We have a 3% mortgage and a $250,000 loan amount. I just chose a random arbitrary number, but the point is you have a 3% interest rate mortgage. Maybe you bought this home or you refinanced it back in 2021 when the rates were really low. And in fact, I'm going to pull up a chart to show you on April 1st of 2021, based on the Federal Reserve data, it looks like the average mortgage rates were around that 3%. So I'm going to choose 3%, 30-year mortgage. And if we stick around for the next 30 years on the same home, same mortgage, we would only end up paying $129,000 of interest. Not bad. But establishing the fact that the US Census Bureau shows that the average person moves every 6 to 7 years, or at least that's what I'm delineating or extrapolating from that data, you would have basically paid about $49,000 of cumulative interest at that point. So this is 7 years later. So we started in April 1st of 2021. So 7 years later, due to outside life circumstances, you have to move, buy a house, whatever the case might be. At that point, you would have already paid $49,000 of interest, and you've accumulated or paid down approximately, let's see what the math here shows, about $40,000 of principal. Not bad. And I'll show you the total math behind this. So moving along to loan number 2. So this will be the second mortgage you would have because, again, you moved and you had no choices but to sell your house. But we know that obviously moving forward, the interest rates aren't going to be as low. We probably won't see the 2.5%, 3% rate for at least for a while. And my prediction is that we'll probably be around 5.5% long term, looking out in the next 5 years. Just my opinion. I could be totally wrong with that. But let's just say 5.5% is what you got. The next home you bought is slightly higher. There's some appreciation. So you ended up getting a mortgage for $350,000 at 5.5% interest rate. And obviously this is going to cost us more. And if we stick around with this mortgage, it's going to cost us about $365,000 of interest against a $350,000 principal balance. Ouch, right? And some may say, well, that's kind of normal and that's how it should be. Sure, but compared to a 3%, yeah, it's a lot higher, right? So again, we continue the cycle. It's 2028, you're living, you're paying it down. And of course, again, assuming the consistency of the 6 to 7 year mark of moving and selling your home, let's say you get to that 7-year mark once again, which would be now 2035, you would have paid approximately $129,000 of interest at that point. with all the accumulative interest payments. And then once again, moving on to your third loan because you had to sell, move, life circumstances, whatever have you. This time, I'm going to keep the 5.5% interest rate the same because I really can't predict more than 10 years beyond, right? Who knows what could happen at that point. But let's say you bought a home, a brand new home, and your new mortgage, your third mortgage now at this point, is $450,000 principal balance, same 5.5% interest. And once again, if you were to stick around and this is your final home, this is it, no more selling and moving, you would approximately pay $469,000 of accumulative interest over the next 30 years. But guess what? You already spent the last 14 years as a homeowner. Holy crap, we still have 30 years left to go. That's a bit of a dilemma, isn't it? So assuming this is your final mortgage, this is it, no more moving and getting a new mortgage. I've done the math as far as what is the true cost over the last 3 loans that we've gotten because of those life circumstances of moving, relocating, again, based on the US Census Bureau data. So on the first loan between 2021 to 2028, obviously great interest rate, 3%. We would have paid $49,000 the first 7 years. And I've demonstrated that by showing you right here in the amortization chart on the 7th year mark, on the 7th anniversary. So $49,000. Loan number 2, okay, slightly higher interest rate or way higher interest rate, $129,000 of interest costs that we paid the first 7 years. And then we moved on to loan number 3, and we can expect to pay $166,000. Now, that's assuming the first 7 years. If this is our final mortgage or final home, then we will continue paying all the way out to the 30-year mark, and who knows what you're going to pay. And obviously, that's going to be a significantly higher amount. So assuming those 3 loans, we would have paid $344,000 of total interest costs in the span of the last 3 loans in the first 7 years, just on that, okay? And over the 3 loans so far, we paid down $131,000 of equity. That's it. Okay. Of course, yes, I know some of you are arguing, yes, there's appreciation. Great. Awesome. But looking just at the mortgage, we've only paid down $131,000 of principal equity that we built just on the pay down and costed us $344,000 of interest. So I've done the math. I love math. Okay. As you can see, right? $344,000 of interest we accrued over the last 3 loans since 2021 to 2042. We only pay down $131,000 of principal. So what I've done is, okay, what would the interest rate would have been if this was a mortgage? If we borrowed $131,000 and at the end we paid a total of $344,000, the rate would essentially been as if we got a 12% mortgage. Yikes. Okay, so if we went and borrowed $131,000 and we got a 12% interest rate on it, and we waited 30 years and paid this off in the next 30 years, we would essentially end up paying $344,000 and a cumulative interest rate of 262.2%. Okay, that's 2.62 times the principal balance, which is a lot. Okay, so if you look at the total cost of your interest over the span of your life, right, getting 3 mortgages, selling and buying, right, it's as if you had a 12% interest rate mortgage all along. And this, my friends, is how I believe the banks are staying profitable. This is how they can kind of get away with the low 3% because they're betting on the fact that in about 7 years, you're going to get another mortgage, you'll reset the 30-year amortization clock, and then do that again, hopefully more enough to where you're going to pay this amount of interest with this given example. Now, obviously, the example that I showed you through this spreadsheet doesn't represent every single individual out there. You may have different circumstances, different scenarios that may change or dictate this a little bit. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to give you that spreadsheet for free so you can kind of check it out and play it on your own as far as what your true interest cost could be moving out, looking at what your true interest cost could be for the life of your life, not necessarily the current mortgage that you have, because it's likely in 6 to 7 years or maybe sooner, you could be moving due to a unseen circumstance or a scenario that would require you to move, and you don't really have much choice to do that. So having said that, I'll give you the spreadsheet for free. And this is an excellent consideration or perspective when you hear arguments like you should never pay off your mortgage, or hey, why would you ever pay off a super low fixed rate 3% interest rate mortgage? That seems stupid. Why not go invest that into mutual funds, the index funds, ETFs, bonds, whatever the case might be, treasuries, right? Which, by the way, I am not anti-investing. I want you to go and be educated about investing in stocks, bonds, real estate, crypto, if that's your thing. But the point is, I want to give you a new perspective, a new set of consideration when making the best financial decision for you. We need to be able to really get a true cost analysis of what these things are costing us so that we can properly allocate our financial resources to make a sound decision. So for those that are saying, okay, Sam, okay, you got my attention. I didn't know that I'm gonna pay that much interest over the life of my own life, not necessarily my current mortgage. What can I do about this? Now, I have a separate video where I want to show you how to pay off your mortgage in as early as 5 to 7 years. And it's not the same thing as paying extra or biweekly payments or baby steps. We actually have a different cash flow optimized strategy. I believe that I can show you a different strategy that can help you pay off your mortgage faster so that not only will you avoid being in this trap of paying interest over interest over interest, but not being in the position where you're 50, 60, 70 years old and you still have 30 years left to go on your mortgage, which sounds crazy to me. So I'm gonna show you how to avoid that and escape that trap. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not just about the mortgage, but I truly believe that I make videos like this so that I can help you achieve financial peace of mind, that you feel like you have some level of awareness and education to make the best choice and decisions for you. So with that being said, leave your comments and thoughts below. Am I right about this? Am I wrong? I welcome all voices, and if we can have conversations and dialogue and I can learn, that would be phenomenal. And I think this will elevate everyone's awareness and education when it comes to finances. So with that being said, if you love this video, give us a thumbs up and leave your comments and thoughts below. And of course, check out the video right here on how to pay off your mortgage in as early as 5 to 7 years using a strategy that I believe could be a great fit for you. So with that being said, we'll see you in the next video.